She also has unfailing political instinct and perhaps a lot of good luck.
She went door to door to people and talked to them about what they wanted in city government or in Wasilla. And a lot of times she had her 2 kids in a wagon in tow. During her second term, she could see that nothing was really going to change unless the leadership changed. And so she ran for mayor. And she won fairly handily.
That was in 1996. She won the election by knocking off a 3-term incumbent.
I was elected mayor of my hometown, where my agenda was to stop wasteful spending and cut property taxes and put the people first.
Sarah was 32 years old, earning $68,000 a year.
We're not going to do that.
She had served for 2 terms. Over the next 6 years, she'd take Wasilla by storm. Her dedicated, fierce, and no-nonsense approach led to the revival of her old high school nickname, Sarah Barracuda.
One of the first things she did was to call for the resignation of a number of people because she wanted her people in place. And part of the reason that she did that certainly was to push her social conservative agenda.
And what she was doing was exercising her right and her privilege as the mayor to replace those people.
Close friend Judy Patrick met Sarah when they dropped their children off at preschool. She was also Palin's deputy at City Hall.
And so as a formality, she asked them all to submit letters of resignation, which somehow was interpreted as firing everybody. When she was elected, I think she was also replacing what was at that time considered somewhat of an old guard. And they were on a path for development and spending a lot of the taxpayers' money, which she's loath to, and she basically upset their apple cart.
It's my favorite part of the day. It really is.
Hi, little kids!
Being young and inexperienced and a mother of small children has always been a criticism that has been leveled against her from the time she ran for council member in Wasilla.
Rather than try to counter that, she's embraced it. She said, yeah, I'm young, yeah, I'm inexperienced, but how do you get experience? I guess you get on the job and get experience. And it has worked. It has worked because she's aggressive, she's intelligent, she's courageous, she's utterly fearless.
She knows what she wants. She's a very focused and driven individual.
Diane Keller succeeded Sarah as mayor of Wasilla.
That's what Sarah's all about. If she wants to do something, she will work really hard. She rolls up her sleeves and she gets the job done.
With Palin at the helm, Wasilla boomed. She relied on sales tax revenues to fuel growth. During her tenure, the city's operating budget increased by almost $2 million. She improved infrastructure and beefed up the local police department.
Thank you for your good service.
There was also reason to celebrate at home.
Say bye-bye.
I'll call you right back.
By 2001, Todd and then 37-year-old Sarah had welcomed 2 new additions to their family, daughters Willow and Piper.
I love it!
Today, as it was back then, the Palins remain very tight-knit.
If he's away at work, things get a little bit more hectic. But when he's home, he takes care of all the domestic stuff in the morning. You know, he braids Piper's hair and gets everybody with breakfast ready to go while I'm working.
But back in 2002, Sarah was riding out her second term.
The Republican Party in Alaska was starting to take notice of this young mayor of Wasilla who was making waves and making a name for herself.
With 6 years' experience, party leaders encouraged her to enter the race for the Republican nomination for lieutenant governor.
She was young, she was articulate, she was attractive, and she was the antithesis of the good old boy network.
Governor Sarah Palin drops the hockey gloves, but there are a few bumps in the road. That's just ahead. In 2002. Serena Williams defeats her sister Venus and wins the French Open. Wall Street Journal reporter Daniel Pearl is kidnapped and murdered. And President Bush addresses the United Nations.
Saddam Hussein's regime is a grave and gathering danger.
As the world watched and waited, Sarah Palin was in the middle of her second term as mayor of her hometown, Wasilla.
She had run a bit of a maverick campaign. The Republican Party organization had taken note of her, and so they began to look at her as a potential statewide politician.
So she decided to run for lieutenant governor.
And then entered into this race against people that really are your friends, and now all of a sudden you're all competitors because you're going for the same goal.
It was very much a grassroots campaign. She basically did it out of her car and out of her briefcase. She just went and talked to people.
I just remember that fundraising was difficult because the fact that those other people were very well known and she essentially wasn't.
She fought hard and campaigned even harder.
Thank you so much.
But a mere 2,000 votes kept her from clinching the Republican Party's nomination.
I would be naive to think that it's as easy for a woman, I think, in this man's world of Alaskan politics. I think a woman has to work that much harder to prove herself, and it's a challenge.
The 38-year-old mother of four once again sought refuge and comfort in her husband Todd and their family.
When she lost for lieutenant governor, she and I had a conversation. I said, you know what, Sarah? You are destined for bigger things than the lieutenant governorship.
But she attracted attention. She got name recognition. Well, the governor, Murkowski, appointed her to the Alaska Oil and Gas Conservation Commission, which has pretty much chief responsibility for monitoring how the industry here is being regulated.
The 2003 appointment would thrust Palin into the limelight and all but cement her future political career.
She had principal responsibility for ethics. Well, she took note that a number of people in the Republican Party who were on that commission with her were using their offices for party business. There were other kinds of skullduggery going on.
The main offender? GOP chairman and fellow commissioner Randy Rudrick.
And so she talked to Randy about these things, and nothing much came of it. And so she went up the chain of command to try and remedy the situation.
In November 2003, the state began its official investigation into Rudrick. 3 days after, he resigned, but wasn't formally accused.
Basically, she waited again to see what was going to happen, and nothing did.
Frustrated and disillusioned, Sarah left her post as chair of the commission.
And she blew the whistle.
In doing so, she stepped out as an independent. The party did not support her blowing the whistle on the party undertaking corrupt activities. And so she parted company at that time with the party organization in Alaska.
Rudrick eventually settled with the state by paying a record $12,000 civil fine, admitting misconduct.
She was hugely successful. Not only was the party chair forced to resign, but the state attorney general was forced to resign also.
She talked to the press about what her experience had been once she was allowed to do so. That was a turning point for her career in the sense that she stood up in a big way to some very powerful interests in the state.
She was praised as a hero in the press and in the eyes of the public.
This was the spirit that brought me to the governor's office when I took on the old politics as usual in Juneau. When I stood up to the special interests and the lobbyists and the big oil companies and the good old boys, we put the government of our state back on the side of the people.
Just ahead as the governor's career soars, some other family troubles. A bitter custody battle between Sarah's sister and her ex-husband. A fired Alaskan state trooper makes headlines.
We have a new baby coming into this house. People have asked me, well, they asked me early on especially, how are you going to do it? Be governor while you have young kids? And I say, the same way every other governor has done it.
This is exclusive Fox News footage from last April showing a beaming Sarah shortly before she gave birth to her fifth child, Trig.
I feel great.
Yeah?
It's been extraordinarily comfortable and easy, this pregnancy. In fact, I didn't tell anybody I was pregnant until last month, and I hid it until last month, and then didn't even purposely really try to hide it. Just my abs were tight and I could hide it until this month. There was no way.